We
I'm impressed.
should be officially live here, Meaningful Ideas Trading Club. And boy, man, it is already February 6th, 2025. Meaningful Ideas Trading Club is live via Facebook. We are now live in the Zoom room. We're starting to let people into the room. We're Central Time here, so we're going noon to 1:15 Central, folks. Feel free to jump into the Zoom room if you want to get involved in the chat, get involved in the discussion, ask questions here today. We've got Adam Schweickert joining us. We'll give an introduction, allow Adam really to kind of take over and tell us everything that he's doing. But just really grateful for all of you joining us there in Facebook and here live. So Meaningful Ideas Trading Club is something that we started back in 2021. We've been trying to keep this up weekly and getting better at it. And we started this really to focus on personal and professional development, but we love to talk about health, wellness, and relationships. It's a place for people to show up, share ideas on what's meaningful to them and how they can help people. So feel free to dive in, be vulnerable, ask questions. We really want to dig deep in here and just be a great resource for everybody. So we have 3 rules, Adam, and I took these rules that really they stood out to me. And this is from Tony Robbins. And these rules are that for your business to be successful, and if you're the leader, your leader has to be someone who believes that there's a treasure out there. That number 2, the treasure is worth it, and 3, that you will find it. So keep going with the mission.
Uh,
So
I love
yeah.
it. I'm a big fan of a show called Oak Island. I don't know if anybody watches that on History
No.
Channel.
Uh-huh.
Literally
Yeah.
nobody does, but I think I'm the only one that does.
Okay.
It's all about these guys that have been trying to find
For
buried
sure.
treasure in Nova Scotia for like 13 seasons now, and I would say they believe it's there. Do they think it's worth it? Yes, and I think they've got all 3 boxes checked. So big
Really
believer.
awesome. Well, there you go. It sounds like we already have you got one person who's watching that same show. That's
Yeah.
Meg. So there's some familiarity with it. Yeah, no, that sounds right up our alley here. Just important to always be going after that North Star, meeting your goals, right? And resetting them. So, guys, this is Adam Schweickert. Brief introduction, at least on my end. So, Adam and I became connected through the Strategic Coach program. Strategic Coach is executive coaching started by a guy named Dan Sullivan, who's been doing this for a number of years. And so we both became involved in the program. Adam, I think we were both on like a Zoom call that was kind of like an introduction prior to the very first session. And I think you and I were set up to be in the same cohort, if you call it that.
Mhm.
What happened is there was some transition. I got moved to a different cohort outside of yours. So you got started on the strategic coach program prior to me starting. And so you're ahead of me on it, which is really cool. But you kind of came back and said, "Hey, I saw you on the on our Zoom, and I wanted to connect with you and just kind of see how our worlds could maybe combine and work and help each other." So
Yeah.
I want to thank you for that and reaching out. Um, and so that's how we met. And then Adam and I got together and via Zoom virtually. We haven't connected face to face in the real world yet, I guess on real time, but I think we intend to do that. And it just felt like there was a lot of similarity there in projects that you're working on. So, Adam,
Yeah.
I'm talking here a lot. If you could, why don't you tell us a little bit where you zooming in from today? Where are you? Where's your business? Who is your business? During the call, if you don't mind, we might share our screen and show a little bit about you. Just continue to talk if that's okay with you.
Perfect.
All right.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, thank you, Kyle. My name's Adam Schweickert, zooming in from downtown Chicago, Illinois here today. I think the reason I reached out to Kyle is really because I'm a big fan of the state of Wisconsin. Spent a lot of time there through my college years, and it's always good to connect with someone from the Midwest, especially when you see them in a Zoom room filled with people across the nation. So excited to be here today. My business is called BuildTheProcess, where we help companies document their processes. Very creative name when I decided to buy the domain one day in the back of an Uber. But anyways, BuildTheProcess exists to help companies that are typically running on EOS document their core processes extract like that tribal knowledge that lives in people's heads that's just so hard to capture sometimes, and get that packaged up into a searchable knowledge base so that it can be published there. It's easy to find, it's easy to update. And then we help you create a culture at your company that follows a thinking track of empowering your people to say, do I have a question? If yes, where do I go for that answer? Right. I start with the knowledge base. If it's not in the knowledge base, then I go to a manager. If the manager has the answer, great. Let's put it in the knowledge base. If they don't have the answer, do we need to create content? And kind of creates that culture of this living, breathing thing that's really exciting, especially when it really takes off. So that's what we exist to do, is help companies kind of get over that hump, get that tribal knowledge out of their head, and get it into a place that it's cliche to say, but is scalable.
Right. Now, when I first talked to you and you talked about the knowledge base, I don't know, I don't know why. It seems like a term that I should be familiar with. It just like didn't really hit at first. And then I was thinking about one of our team members here who, when he came aboard, said, "Hey, we should start like an internal wiki where the FAQs go, right, where like all this stuff is collected." I'm like, "Yeah, that's a great idea. Like, how do we do that, right?" And I think what I'm interested in hearing from you is it's not really a how question, it's a who question that we'll get to. So the knowledge base, and let me just zoom out here for a minute. First off, well, where did Greg go? I think this is our first baby appearance. I wanted to give Greg a shout out
Hey,
there. There we go. First baby appearance.
love that.
Yeah. Um, Baby's gonna start hearing all this stuff. Adam, you have a future process builder, right?
It's the young ones that really grab onto this thing too. So it's exciting to see. Sort of.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. There we go. So, all right. So I'm a visionary. We talked about this, Adam. My son taught me this one day when we were playing soccer, and he did some like he's just a little guy, but he was like did some soccer move and then like scored a goal, and I'm like, "Hey," I'm like, good idea, good execution, two thumbs up, right? And he's like,
Hmm.
okay, yeah, and he's all excited. And he did it again. And I'm like, okay, that one was a good idea, but the execution was like, it was okay,
Yeah.
right? And like my brain caught on to something. That two thumbs up meant good idea, good execution. So
Hmm.
where I usually suffer as a visionary is lots of good ideas, like lots of good
Yeah.
ideas. And the execution, I can do it, but execution to me is time consuming. And when
Hmm.
I move over to execution, the ideas tend to fade away because now I'm all in execution phase and I want to
Yeah.
get back to my idea phase, and I get frustrated over here in execution. So for me personally, that's hard. Where do you fit? Are you a visionary type or an integrator type? Do you like the ideas, or the execution?
Yeah. That's a great point. So I sit in the visionary seat for our company here today. Historically, I am wired as an integrator, though, where my background has always been in my past experience has always been in working with small companies on the consulting side, to where it's like really all the stuff that you don't think about in the day to day, which is the execution piece. How do we thoughtfully communicate to folks? How do we put together a game plan? How do we roll out this game plan, make sure people are bought in and actually drive
Yeah.
this thing over to the finish line has been my upbringing for the last 10 years, really.
Okay.
And that's how my brain is wired, is to think in those terms. So now having,
Mm,
sitting in the visionary seat for our company here is, I have to think about ways to expand the business, new
hmm
service offerings, things like that. So as you said, the execution and the ideas are two, fairly separate boats, but I think it helps that I have perspective in both. But to speak to your point on getting bogged down in the execution as a visionary, I think that's where you really have to think about giving your team the tools to go execute, and kind of the framework and methods to go execute. So you don't have to be the one that always has to sign off or, help somebody find the answer. Really what we focus on is helping, when it comes to knowledge bases, and knowledge extraction, process documentation, is we want to give people a framework and thinking track to move through, so that as the visionary, you don't have to be there every day micromanaging. Did we document our processes the right way? Did we, get that thing done the right way? We've given folks a playground and a landscape and a framework to go do that. Now they just have to follow the guidelines. So, probably similar to your son,
Mhm.
He probably didn't have, a written down playbook in his mind, but he probably thinks in frameworks now based on, his past coaching to say, hey, when this guy goes left, I'm going to go right, and then maybe hit him with the spin move. I'm not a soccer guy. I was a football guy coming up. This is when I cut back in traffic, things like that. So
Yeah.
we just want to empower folks with the thinking tools and frameworks to then go think the way that you would want them to think as a visionary to go execute. Now, that's what a knowledge base can do is say, Kyle, just document what you want folks to do and to get them 80% of the way there. And if,
Mhm.
you have to do more than that, then maybe they're not the right folks. But I'm a big believer in a book called Buy Back Your Time called Dan Martell. It's basically the framework to work with an executive assistant. He quotes in that book, 80% of 80% of done by someone else is 100% awesome. So,
What does that
you know,
mean?
so that means as long as you don't have to do it and somebody else can get it to 80% of the way there of what you would have done, that means you don't have to do it and you don't have to get sucked down in it. And that's really where you should have the bar at as a business owner is that, you'd love to get it to 100, but if you can
Mhm.
draw out a framework or document guidelines for people to get to 80% of the way there, really hard to get to 100, and you're probably going to really not enjoy trying to get to 100. That's the execution piece that you were just
Sure.
talking about there is having to,
Right.
get too into the weeds. So
Okay, first off, I want to a couple things. Let's let's talk about who you are here. So here's where you guys can find Adam. I'll put this stuff into the chat for you too. So the business is called Build the Process, right?
yes, sir.
And nice looking website, guys. Very informational. I've checked it out. And we're gonna jump into some of these things today, the old way, new way. I want to get into that. So make sure to check out Adam's website. He's got some YouTube videos. You can find that over here. Um, here you go. You got a new subscriber.
Love that. Ring the
Um,
bell.
yes, I'll be checking in on that and seeing what's new there. Here's where you can find Adam on LinkedIn. Is this a good place to connect on LinkedIn? Some people use it, some people don't.
LinkedIn's great. Hit me in the messages. Playing that LinkedIn game is, trying to fill up a content feed is sometimes a bit of a slug for folks on a regular basis, but I am responsive in the messages. So
All right, cool. Um, Patrice, thanks for helping with the program today. So she's grabbing some of these links and putting that into the chat, and she'll continue to do that. Guys, if you need anything that we discuss in here, Patrice is a great source for you. She'll drop her email address in the chat, and you guys can connect up if you want to know how to connect with Adam or me or anyone else who's on this call. So Adam, okay, so building the process, right? Like, and sometimes there's a tendency, especially with small businesses, to think, I don't need this. This is too big for me. I have to internalize this. We don't have the money.
mhm.
So if you could step back first, tell us, what does Build the Process do? Who does it help? Service-based businesses, right?
Yep.
So what's the,
Service-based
yeah.
Service-based businesses, typically about 10 to 50. I like to say office staff because sometimes you get more of an inflated headcount if you're a distribution and you've got 100 people in the warehouse.
Mhm.
So 10 to 50 office staff who are struggling to document their processes that are running on EOS is really our sweet spot. There is who we're built out to best serve.
Okay.
Any
Let me jump
larger
in there.
than
What's
yeah,
EOS? We've talked about in this program. I know
yes.
it. We run on EOS, but give us a quick overview of
Absolutely.
EOS.
As you know, I'm a big fan of frameworks. EOS is a business operating framework, not a software by any means, but it's a framework for how to run your business at an entrepreneurial company. So it stands for the Entrepreneurial Operating System, lays out 6 key components of your business that you need to be strong within. The book that it is centers around, it's called Traction by Gino Wickman, a fantastic book. I first read it in 2017, and I like to say that once you read that book, it kind of ruins the lens of how you view your business because you can't view it in any other way after that.
True. It's true.
So there's your warning, but it's for the better. And so basically helps you just kind of operate, run better meetings, be speaking the same business language as everyone in under the same roof. So helps you run a little bit more effectively as a company.
So one of the key components of EOS, and I'm with you, right? Like once I read Traction, I was like, wow, okay, here it is, right? And then you start implementing it, and your
Yeah.
brain just cannot think any other way.
Yeah.
And if you're right, if your team members are not speaking the same language, and not kind of keeping up with it, it's like you're living in two different worlds. And so I see things how communication should go, who should be, addressing the issues, discussing them, and solving them. And that might be
Hmm.
different from somebody else in my company. So as a leader here, it's always my job to make sure that I'm reinforcing things like accountability chart, right person, right seat, all of these issues. So read traction, guys. And even if you don't like it, pass it on to a friend. One of the key components, did we lose Adam? Oh no.
I'm here.
Okay, I lost you on my screen. One of the key components, though, to EOS, right, is processes. So, and that's where you come in. True?
Yes, that's all we focus on. That's our little slice of the pie there.
So tell us with that. So now we have businesses and they're struggling with processes. So,
Mhm.
um, what are typical processes that you would come across? We can use my law firm as an example, and you don't
Yep.
know all the ins and outs of it, but if I said to you, all right, here at HKK, right, like in our operations, our delivery of service, that's the traditional legal work, right, that people
Yep.
generally engage a law firm for, right? I'm going to hire you. I have a
Yep.
legal problem, a family law action, and I want you to fix it for me.
Yep.
Within that are various operations between the attorneys, paralegals, legal assistants, the whole thing, right?
Hmm.
Intake, closing a file.
Absolutely.
So go ahead, you can use us or any other business, but tell
I
us
mean,
about some common processes.
I'll use guys as an example. So basically, many of the common processes we see, and when people think about what their core processes are, we always like to say, let's just zoom out. And before we get too into the weeds, let's think about your customer journey, right? So, like you mentioned, Kyle, you probably have to go do some marketing, right? You probably have a marketing process, how you place ads, maybe, if you've got a local newspaper, Facebook, Google, whatever you have there, marketing, maybe social asset creation, right? What's the process to create those things and, create some buzz about the business, right? That's kind of top of the funnel. Then we get into, okay, we've got a fish on the line. What's our sales process to okay, so somebody submits an online form. What's the next step? What's the templated email that they get? Do they get a call? Do they first have to go through a screening process? Is there a script that's used for the screening process? Is there filtering criteria? So that would be an example of like a sales process where you're
Mhm.
in that dating cycle. Then now once you've gotten a yes from those folks, it's now then to like an intake or customer onboarding or setup is a really common one that we see. How do we get this new sale, you know, communicated with in a very holistic manner to know what next steps are? How do we make sure that in our systems, whichever systems you're running your business on, they probably have to have a profile created. Whatever the thing is that you do, set them up so that you can invoice them, track them, make sure that you're doing what you promised that you would do, so that when you actually go to deliver your service, in the next process that we typically see is like operations, which is like service delivery.
Mhm.
And that's really your secret sauce, you doing what you do. And really, the most common ones, marketing, sales, onboarding, are very typical throughout companies. Where we see the most variation is when we start to get into the operations piece, which is what makes your business unique, how you deliver value to customers. And so that typically varies depending on the type of business that you're in. So there's a little bit of uniqueness there. But once you get over your product and service, then you need to talk about finance, which is how do you AR invoice and get paid? Or I'm sorry, AR invoicing and then getting paid, and then AP if you have that, and that's applicable to your business. How you pay vendors, review invoices, and make those decisions. And so beyond that, another really the most common that we see is employee onboarding and offboarding, which is I think every
Mhm.
business on this call could probably relate to. So that list of core processes, if you came up with nothing else, is probably the most effective to get started with. So if you're really stuck and saying, I don't know where to go, I would
Right.
probably start with those, or just reconsider your customer journey from top to bottom and just bullet those out in very simple terms to just kind of get you moving in the right direction.
So a lot of that, you know, what I love about this, right, is like you could have the person that says, well, I don't, it's just like all in my head. Like I just do it. Right. And those are processes that live in people's heads.
Yep.
Yeah.
So what we call that tribal knowledge.
Mhm.
And that tribal knowledge is just like you said, it came back from the caveman days when, they weren't writing things down. They were, stones on, chiseling things into the rock. But they knew how to function as, I guess, a tribe. Do cavemen run in tribes? Right. They know what the guidelines are, what's good, not good, and they could just get by doing that. Right. As a company, you can kind of get by doing that for a little while, but then you're going to hit that ceiling, which is when it's like, okay, we've really got to write something down here because now we're onboarding new staff and it like we just can't spend the time to sit with them to really explain all the basics of the business. We have to just say, start here. And again, let's get you to 80% if we can with the guidelines of the business and our processes. And then that extra 20%, that's on the job. That's day to day. That's questions. That's kind of how we view, that tribal knowledge piece and trying to approach it in a way that is realistic, but also leaves some room to fill in for some on the job type of experience that you couldn't necessarily write an entire Bible and expect somebody to read it on their first day and come the second day ready to go.
Yeah, one of the books that was a game changer for me, I've talked about it so many times on this program. It's, the author is Jim Collins. And, so Jim Collins, talks about this concept of genius with 10,000 followers and basically says, the businesses that have a leader who has like all of these processes in his or her mind, and the business works when that leader is there and present and able to kind of pull everything together. This is in his book. It's called Good to Great. And I'm sure you're familiar with that one, Adam.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's
So
probably
it's a great book, right? Sitting back there.
yeah.
Right. And I just love it because it's like it's right. And some of us, I don't know who on this call who's experienced that. Speak up if you have, where you're just around this person who like is great because they're doing everything, and you go to that person instead. That's where all the knowledge is. And you're able to do what do we do for marketing? How much do we have for marketing? What do we do in sales? How do we do this? How do we open a file? How do we do this? How do we do that? And that works, but then if something happens to that person or that person's not around, then it all falls apart. And
Mhm.
and then that's the whole part about, are we building this for today or are we building it for tomorrow?
Mhm.
And I think entrepreneurs struggle with that because a lot of times we're in it, we're like, hey, I just want this, I need this done. I want to live my life now.
Yeah.
So would you agree processing is about 10 years from now and not, it's the decisions we make today that will be better for the people 10 years from now? And hopefully they'll be impacted within the next
Yeah.
10 months, but
Yes. Yes and no. I think my viewpoint on that is, if you're documenting for the future, you're kind of almost guessing at some things like, yes, here's an ideal state in the future, but in order to get there, we have to kind of start with today.
sure.
And so, well, I agree. It's important to cast a vision of the future and like, what your definition of excellence is. I think where most teams kind of get a little too hung up is on that scenario that you just explained there, Kyle, which is it's going to change here in a couple of months. Let's just wait until it's done changing and then we'll
Mm,
document it. Right.
right,
And
right.
so between now and the change, it's like, well, what do you do? Okay. We're still in the same boat, right? There's still no understanding of how to operate. It's still tribal knowledge. So where we typically will recommend folks do is really just start with current state, because current state it's real, it's existing, it's now, and it can be written down, right?
Mhm.
Versus a little
Okay.
bit more of a brainstorming session as to what you want it to be. So we start with current state because that allows you to at least understand the playing field and then understand where the gaps are so that you can go from current state and have a future state, but all the things in here, which is like, hey, we need to, improve this system or we need to implement this to get you to future state. Now you can kind of have a roadmap between current and future to get you there. And so we'll typically start with current state, assuming and knowing that we're going toward future. But to start with future is almost like wishful thinking. And I also think when you start with current state, it gets some quick early wins under your belt, because I think you'd be surprised by how much value writing down even just a slightly broken system can do for you, to just start to get people on the same page. People can understand, okay, these are the types of things we need to write down, right? You just take it for granted what you do on a day-to-day basis, and you don't think much of it. But then when you actually have that at the front of your mind to say, this comes up a lot, it would be good for somebody else to know. I know to go then put that into the knowledge base. Doesn't have to be perfect, but at least the team knows where the first step is to go find answers. And so we always recommend doing that. Day one is just to empower the team to have that place for them to put their brain. And it doesn't have to be perfect out of the gates. So
substitute folder, right?
There you go. Yeah, if you're a substitute teacher.
Hey, what are some of the traditional approaches that you see companies using that are not working effectively?
So where we'll typically see things done is companies, visionaries. Sorry if there's any on the call. They typically look at their staff and say, "Go document your processes," right? And that's great if the person, if you're expecting them out of the box to be an expert at documenting their processes. And that's not always the case, right? As a visionary, you say, well, I'm paying you, you should be able to do that, right? Like, certainly there may be some merit to that, but you need to think, did you hire that person because they're an expert at professionally packaging and documenting processes and extracting knowledge from your team? No, you hire them because they are a fantastic warehouse manager and they know logistics really, really well, not because they can, just go write down their processes on a whim. Now, that being said, that's the traditional approach that we see is visionaries saying sales, marketing, ops, finance, just take a rock. A rock in the EOS world is a quarterly priority to go document your processes. And then everybody scurries off to their corner of the company, does what they think is best in a silo, and then comes back at the end of the quarter and is like, well, look what I did. And it's just completely different. There's no standard. There was never any expectation set as to what format you should use, how long this should take, the other team members that should be involved with this to get buy-in and get other people's opinions. So the approach we always see is you go do, and I'll see you at the end of the quarter. And then it's just kind of a crapshoot. So there's not much of a framework or guidance for folks or template that is given for people to go be a subject matter expert and then just do. And so we've put together some tools around that to help, but it's typically a spray and pray approach that if you have good enough people that can take initiative, they can get you there, but most aren't typically suited, or as we like to say, another EOS term, most folks don't GWC process. Meaning, do they get it, want it, and have the capacity to do it? That's the measure of if someone is, it's part of a tool called the People Analyzer in the EOS system. It's really a binary measure of, is this person the right person for our company, or are they in the right seat? Are they capable of this role? And so maybe it's just not in their natural ability to go just crank out their processes.
Right.
So
I'm going to have you pause there because I think Patrice can. Patrice is probably like, save me from Kyle, Adam.
I was just going to tell you that you have a question from Timmy.
Yeah.
Let me get to that. I just want to make this
okay.
point, but I mean, this is what happens, right? Patrice, how many times have I said, all right, yeah, go put the process together and come back, right? Like, we have this idea, we want to get something going, and we talk about running it out, and I think we have some of those that are probably out there right now, right?
Yeah, but the engineer in me loves the processes too, so I'm always here for it.
Yeah.
You got a good one there then, Kyle. Patrice can get you there. Not many can.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrice. So Timmy, welcome back to Meaningful Ideas Trading Club. You have a question here. The question is like a workflow. So Timmy, go ahead, jump in. What's your question for Adam?
Is what you're describing like a workflow. I think it's kind of evident, Kyle. You can read, right?
Yeah.
Well, I wanted you to tackle it, my friend.
A little extra context. It is. And so when you think about workflows, you kind of start to think about um, technology that's associated and all that fun stuff. Yes. To answer your question, yes, just like a workflow, right? So documenting your processes really becomes the blueprint for a workflow. Or, it could be maybe you have a workflow that is already working for you and maybe you just need to kind of write it down, right? So it's like a chicken or the egg scenario there. But I'll typically use workflow and process in the same sentence, just because I don't think there's much of a difference between the two. It's how you take the steps through a linear process to get you from A to Z. I think both cover that as well. So I would use the two terms synonymously.
What are the business challenges, that come up routinely with processes when they're doing them incorrectly? What are the things you see?
Yeah. So if you're running on so EOS skewed today, your scorecard. So if you're reviewing numbers on a regular basis or just tracking metrics in your business, those metrics are going to be maybe a little off, or maybe the numbers aren't what you need them to be. So that may be indicative of a broken process. It's showing up in your numbers. Other consequences of poor process, employee frustration. That's a tough one to really, capture as a hard data point. But if you did want to capture, I would say employee turnover, right? You're having folks come on board, they show up day one, email's not ready, computer's not ready, don't know who to talk to for certain things within your company. And they just kind of feel like they're on an island, right? They have no guidance. You hired them, you dated them through the job interview process, and then they show up and you're like, go, run around, jump into the fires, and we'll see when we see you, which is many companies' onboarding process, right? So high employee turnover.
Right? Do you see that a lot?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And with the companies that we work with, what's really rewarding is we check in 30, 60, 90 days after each engagement with them. And the first thing they always say is we onboarded our first hire and they had the best experience after we were able to just give them the resources to be successful with all the documentation we built out together. And again, what a breath of fresh air for the company and also the employee who may be used to some poor experiences, right? Because I think the bar's pretty low when it comes to employee onboarding and giving folks a great experience on their first day when they show up. There's a book called Never Lose an Employee Again. It's by Joey Coleman. Great book that really goes into the details of giving a great experience. And it touches on the importance of the resources that you provide someone on that first day can make such a meaningful impact over their, retention over 100 days. It's pretty incredible.
So thank you for that link, Patrice. And Patrice is also pointing to our YouTube channel. Check that out. What I'm hearing you saying, though, is the business challenges essentially one is a time issue, right? If you're doing this internally, there's a time issue, right?
Yep.
The people issue, meaning you've hired somebody, as you said, to be a warehouse manager, right? And now you ask them to start documenting everything that they do, right? You didn't hire them to come in and document. You hired them to run the warehouse, right? And then you kind of said the expectations then on the process are not clear. So even if somebody says, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Warehouse Manager, you're doing a great job. I really like everything you're doing. Things are starting to run really well. I want you to start now writing everything down and developing this process so we can bring in other people and duplicate this. That person now has no idea how to construct this process, right? Like what software do I use? You want it on Microsoft Word? You want a Google Sheet? You want Excel? Or the whole thing, right? It just becomes now a whole guesswork. That's kind of the point you're making, right? And do I print this? Is it paper? Is it digital? Where do I store it? How do other team members find it? These are the questions.
100%. Those are all the challenges that amount to process not getting done or failed efforts, right? It's because there's so many of those question marks that when left to someone's own devices, they're going to do what they think is best. And, maybe they haven't done this before. So again, we've put together the resources to basically say, not to assimilate it to a coloring book, but we tried to make it so that it's literally, here's the template, here's where you put it, here's how to search it out, and here's how to just start immediately today. And we're trying to eliminate all of those friction points that you just brought up as part of that there.
Okay, so first you've talked about a knowledge base, right? You shared this with
Yes.
me. So tell everyone what we're looking at here, just so they get some sense of what this is, where they could, what is this?
Absolutely. So this is the company knowledge base template that we have available for everyone on this call. So
Kyle,
if you
can you
open
make
up
that bigger? I'm sorry, Adam. Kyle, can you make that any bigger, dude?
I don't know. Is there a process for that?
hit Control plus or Command plus on your keyboard there.
Control plus, like
That
the
should
plus
zoom in.
sign.
Yeah.
Man, now this is way above my head. While I fumble around looking for that, go ahead.
Yeah. So what we have here is our company knowledge base template that basically, there you go. Perfect.
Document that, Adam.
There you go. Tribal knowledge that. I don't know. Is
Thank
that
you.
we can
Appreciate
create a
it.
page for that. So what you see here is our company knowledge base template that we've built out that is the same knowledge base template we give to all of our clients when we first start. And so if you hit that little drop down arrow next to company information on the left there, Kyle.
Yeah.
We've given companies a space to say, let's go ahead and give you some instruction on how to use this knowledge base, an about section for our company, an employee directory, a place to put your VTO. And if you're running on EOS, your employee directory there, if that doesn't exist, people's name, phone, contact, email. Your VTO, if you're running on EOS, which is basically your 10-year guide to where the business needs to go in its future state. Your accountability chart. So if you don't have an org chart, I'll have to open that up. If you don't have an org chart, you can use our template there to create an org chart for yourself and embed that in here. Employee handbook. If you have one of those through your HR department, you can link that in here or build that out as well. So it's all in one place. And any policies that you have. So if you have a dress code, time off, vacation, termination, things like that. Many of these pages are blank, just use it as inspiration for you. But we wanted to at least give you the framework to get rolling. And so this is what's really exciting when companies first get this template from us is, you don't need to spend a ton of time working with our team to fill in that company information. You already know that. So let's get you some quick wins notched so that you can just immediately take the template, fill it out, get the employees in there, get everybody loaded up and say, okay, guys, well, this is head and shoulders above what we've ever had in the past. And in the past, that might have been spread between Google Docs, SharePoint, every one of those things. So the point I want to make here is that a knowledge base is not specifically supposed to be a file storage system, right? Okay. You're always going to need your Microsoft Words, Docs, what have you, spreadsheets. This is meant to be a knowledge base. So anything that's important for your people to know and have it easy access is all right in there. Now, we've given
that's
some sections.
That's the genius with 10,000 followers, the person that everyone goes to and says, how do I do this? Where do I find that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm just curious for the people that are on this call. Just like when I showed that, does that like make you feel good? Like, does it, does that excite you? Does anyone,
Dude, I got a customer for you that really would benefit from your stuff. I swear to God, they need this so bad, so bad. And this is everything that somebody needs when they don't know what's going on. They're new. You got it spelled out. That's a perfect lesson plan.
Yeah. I love how it's so organized. It just helps me feel more calm.
Right.
Like, you feel so overwhelmed at first where you're like, oh my God, we got like how many things to do at once. But then it just kind of lays it out for you step by step. And it's calming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What are most folks on this call using right now for where do you keep your company knowledge currently?
Files, just file. Yeah.
Okay.
And High Note. I use High Note for proposals. So, that just kind of keeps everything documented for me.
Got it. Okay.
I don't have a business. I'm just like comic relief for Kyle.
Love that. Okay. Great.
That's part of what you are for me, I guess. I said that, but yeah, no, Adam, you're right. I mean, it's just like, and then new technology comes along and somebody says, oh, well, could we try this? Right? Like, let's, I mean, and I did that myself. I found, like Google Drive was easier to use than other things. And I started dumping stuff into Google Drive. Here, guys, go find it in there. But then you still have to search. It's really kind of hard to find it. And to your point, you can use all of these, I don't know, storage devices, programs, but really the knowledge base is where just where it's all centralized. The FAQs, I just really love it.
Yeah, it's definitely one place that, with Google Drive, you have to hunt, pack, open files, edit them. The knowledge base is just so open text, edit. You can page through super easily. We've given you a spot for core processes there on the left there too, which maybe if you want to pop open one of those on the left, Kyle.
Yeah. Which one do you want to go through?
So we've given all templates here. So if you expand sales processes and then click into one of those, just click into there. There you go. So this is the template that we've given you. So basically when you go to document your process, you fill out this summary table, which is who's the expert here, what's happening, start event and result, who's involved, softwares and other details here. So again, fill in the blanks if you don't know where to start. Then you start to get into the major steps of your process and then the sub steps of your process. And so if you think about, they say in the EOS world, the 20/80 approach, which is we want to capture 20% of the details that create 80% of the results. That's all right here for you. So it's a fill in the blanks page, as you can see. But when you work with our team, we sit you down and we work with your subject matter experts to basically say, hey, tell us more about your process here. Show us exactly what this looks like. Here's a page that's more than a template. So we visually map these out. You don't have to visually map these processes out, but that's an embedded view. So if you hit the expand button there, Kyle, it should pull you in there. There you go. So we map processes out in this way. We have a course coming out on February 14th that shows you how to map your processes just like this, and then package them up into the knowledge base template that we give you here. The knowledge base template is totally free. It's on our website right now. You can go grab a copy of that. But if you do want to kind of get into a little bit more on the process mapping side, we have a course coming out that basically walks you through how to document visually like this. And so when we work with teams, we work with their subject matter experts to visually document these processes as we go through. So they read from top to bottom, left to right, as simple as we can possibly make it. We don't try to get too fancy with things, but we're able to really visualize the process before we get agreement on it first, and then package it up into that knowledge base so that it can be searched and trained on.
So, and what I'm showing here is like employee onboarding, which is just like really neat to see this, Adam, come together. So first off, you showed us in the previous slide, you kind of had the process overview and it talked about process owner. So here on the left over here, guys, you can see some examples, right, of how you'd fill that in, right? Like, so the shaded area are these, the questions that you're asking, right? Like who owns this process? Then you identify the who, and you move on down the line here. What I love about this is, here with employee onboarding, I've had this, thought, and you've just done a way better job than I could ever do. I envisioned it like, it's like the game of life, right? It's like start here and then you move down the board, and you have various stopping points along the way. And I feel like as I verbalize that to people on my team, they kind of give me a weird look, like they don't quite get it. So in my head, it makes sense. But this laid out is just, does it way better, right? And you've got the description. So just really neat stuff. So bravo to you guys for helping businesses, helping people like me. That's what we need as helpers in the world. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Again, all these things are free on our website. You can go get a copy if you go to buildtheprocess.io/resources. There you'll find a copy of this. You can get the visual template as well as the knowledge base, so you can visually map those all out. And then what you're seeing here is just an embedded view of that visual right within that process itself there. So if you scroll down here, you'll see those blue steps that were laid out are really those blue boxes. And then you'll see how you can embed video if you need to do a training video and any other important details there. And so the important thing here is keep it simple. Don't make this 10 pages long. It should be pretty straightforward, written in pretty plain English. So you can see how those major steps all flow through. And then up in the top right corner, you'll see the breadcrumb trail of, it'll say step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you can easily page through these processes as well. If you need to just skip down to a certain step, it'll pull you right down to that portion there. So again, why we like this, super plain English, super easy to see, easy to navigate. So if people have questions, they can pop right on in here.
That's really great. How long did it take you to build all this?
It's like the Picasso story where he drew a stick figure on a napkin at a bar for a guy and told him it was going to be a couple $1,000, and the guy's like, that took you 2 seconds. So this has been years in the making and refining. And what's really cool about this, I think it's cool, is that, through my background working in these small companies, is that this is really scratching my own itch for what I wish we had when we started to really, grow and professionalize as a company. And so it's been years in the making to really get this format right and keep it simple while giving you enough information. So it's been years in the making to kind of come to a format that works and to keep it simple enough so that the team can grasp it. And so it's been a while.
Yeah, I remember reading a book. I don't remember what it was called, but it was like the very first paragraph of the first chapter. The last line of the first paragraph said, "No one is planning for you, so make a plan for yourself."
Yeah.
And I just it just hit me. And I was like, that's probably right. Really and that's sad. It's sad because as you're saying, you hire somebody, they come in, they're excited. And then the worst feeling in the world is to be on this island and confused and feeling like, well, why am I here? I don't even get it. I don't even know what I'm doing. And there's no plan. And so I'm totally with you. I commend you for it because it's a challenge. And, for me personally, the second half of my career, I see it more as helping others, making a plan for them. And that similar to you comes out of this feeling of like, no one planned for me. I've had to figure it out. I've had to get here pulling from all things.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
somebody's got to change that culture. Somebody has to stop that. Right. And small business, small law firm, somebody's got to come in and say, no, we're going to do it different. We're going to run EOS. We're going to plan for
100%.
you. We're going to move in that direction.
Totally. It's all about, just making a conscious decision to do things differently, which is, I know you guys are changing the game there on that front on the law firm side of things. It's just, again, you don't have to do things the way things used to be done in the past. If you see and are, have strong conviction on, a topic or the way things should be done or an approach, right? That you say, hey, this is working for us and we think this is the future. So plant that flag. And that's right here. What our attempt to do is just plant our flag around our framework. And I know that you're doing the same way as well, Kyle.
Yeah. Thank you. So if we go to your website and you can get this link and what we just showed, I'll show it again, is a lot of that is free.
Yep.
Why are you doing that? What's the strategy? Tell
Yeah.
us about that. And then how do you guys come in?
Totally. So the free approach is taken from inspiration from a gentleman named Alex Hermosi, which he's Google him. It's hard to miss that last name, but basically what he does, he has certain frameworks that he in thinking tracks, thought processes that he's published publicly for everyone to say, look, here's what's worked for me. If you can be successful running the same playbook and can watch all of this training content that I've put out and spent years formulating and can go be successful, then good for you. Go be successful and you deserve that. Where people often need his help are when they, need a little extra firepower behind those frameworks, right? So the benefit in us of publishing all this for free is now we have everyone like the EOS system. It's like self-implementing EOS or working with an EOS implementer. We're now speaking the same language and we're running on the same framework. But, some can get there if they want to self-implement without an implementer. But if you want to go further and faster and farther, you can work with a professional implementer. So the benefit in us of publishing our work is to really show everyone that there's a framework here and it works. Here's proof. And if you can get there on your own, fantastic. But if you need help, we can be that help. And oh, by the way, we're already speaking the same language.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, it reminds me also of Gary V, who's just like give, give. Gary Vaynerchuk. It'll come back to you, right? It'll all come back to you. So, all right. So you guys come in, then how does somebody engage with you? So tell us about that. We've seen some stuff. It looks like a good looking product. We could see like, what am I getting Gary V on here? I tried. I just see that in the chat. Quick time out. I tried. I don't know, we'd probably have to start paying for admission or charging admission to the program and build up a little bit of a bank for that. But I don't know. And here's the other thing I will say that I haven't tried enough with Gary V. I bet if I had a process where I routinely reached out to him and just didn't give up, at least that would be better than a one-time try, right? Like, I don't know. It's just like the more times you, as a little kid, you write to your favorite ball player and ask for an autograph. You do it once, your chances of getting a return are less than if you did it 100 times. So,
yeah, and then you run the risk of being a middle-aged guy asking for the autograph via mail.
Yeah. Now, sorry, we're on a tangent. Greg said
Middle-aged
Gary
guy,
V responded to him on Telegram. There was a Thanksgiving a couple of years ago where I'm sure that Gary V, he has a texting app too. And he texted me directly because I was like texting him. It was like Thanksgiving. I'm like, nobody's thinking of Gary V today. I'm going to hit him up, thoughtful message. I got something back and I'm like, I think he texted me. Maybe it was a bot. Who knows?
I'm on that chain too. Yeah, I'm familiar. I got a V friend. Okay, I've got
really?
NFT. Got his NFT.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
A little down right now, but that's okay.
Yeah, it'll come back. So tell us.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Timmy.
All right. So have you ever done any work with states, departments of public instruction, like their standards or state standards they have for education, because they have standards. It's like you're talking about with your workflow and all this stuff. And that when a teacher puts together a lesson plan, they have to be able to pick and choose out of this and put it in there to justify what their lesson is, right?
Okay.
It is convoluted. It's huge. It's ever changing. There's nuances, right, that they'll make changes to, but you have to be able to keep up. And as a teacher, it's just so time consuming and such a headache. If you guys could put the techniques that you're using here together with that, you could have, that could make a huge impact on teachers. I mean, more than you know, but not to mention, that could be a cash cow for you, right?
Yeah. I mean, I love the
green
idea
behind me.
I love that. Yes. The idea of standardizing and getting to a little bit more of a guided framework and method to the madness is what we can really help companies suss out. And so they need help. Happy to help.
There's a meaningful idea for you. All right, we like to have fun here too and be serious. So Adam, I'm going to share this just from your webpage, right? Because we're kind of talking about how you guys could come in and help. And I know probably want to, if we can, talk about costs here on this. So kind of talked about the old way, huge effort, lots of wasted time, never gets done. You're trying to do this internally where people don't have time, they don't have the knowledge of how to really do it, and they don't have direction. So you're saying here the new way, which I just like this comparison, dedicated fractional experts. I think that's you. I'll let you speak to that in a minute. Results in half the time. I want to know how you do that, and follows a proven framework to ensure success. What does all of that mean for us that are listening to this and are thinking, we've got processes, we need help. How do we engage?
Absolutely. So old way being that siloed approach we talked about, go point, everybody goes to their corner of the world. And at that point in time now, comes back a quarter later, because that's how long you said it would take. It probably is going to take longer because it probably didn't get done. And it's discombobulated, it's inconsistent, it's not done the right way. So that's that internal approach of the past. And so the new way we see this working out is leveraging dedicated fractional experts such as ourselves, or dedicated fractional experts like ourselves who are using a proven framework. Now, experts that are dedicated have the time. It's our only job is to literally extract knowledge from your team's head. They're well-intentioned staff, but they're subject matter experts in what they do, not putting it out on paper. Leveraging fractional experts with this framework allows you to really treat this thing like the project that we think it should be, hold you accountable, sit people down, make sure we can get all the content that we're obligated contractually to get out of you and package it up into one place in 90 days is typically how long we work with clients. So that's the model, 90-day model. It varies depending on how many core processes you need to get through. We can get through about 8 to 10 in 90 days. And that includes 2 working sessions twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays for an hour. We're super, super focused when we get into those sessions, which is we're talking process. We're going in with a scalpel and we've done our homework based on all the information you've given us about your company prior to make sure that we're not starting from zero. We have a running start and we can make the most of that time. So effectively, we're now able to say to companies that have a low level of capacity. So say if your people are super strapped, we can just say, just give us 2 hours a week. That's all we need. 2 hours a week. Let our team ask the right questions, do all the heavy lifting outside of sessions, get your knowledge base built out, and then deployed to your company in a thoughtful framework that's well communicated, comes with supporting resources. That's not a surprise to anyone, that people feel bought in because they were part of the process to help build. That's our approach, right? So the two things.
How do you know who to invite? How do you know who to talk to?
Yeah. So when we go through this scoping process, we'll open up a workbook and say, okay, what do we think we want to work through core process wise? We'll help you identify those core processes. And then we'll say, who is going to be the process owner for each of those? And that's the subject matter expert. So that's the person who we're going to work with directly. They're typically the most involved in the process, who can tell us how this process should look, feel, flow. Now, there might be a couple other supplementary players in there that need to be in the room to give some thought here, but we call out that process owner and have them on the call just so that we can have that one expert. So if we come into a company and we say, and the visionary is like, I'm the process owner for all of these, I'd say, let's talk to some of your other people, because I would probably guess we have some people that are a little bit more on the ground floor that we can speak with about that versus what the visionary thinks that the way the process goes. So that's how we call out those process owners. And so
I just laugh because I'm laughing at myself.
Yeah.
I have an idea. I think it's working
thing.
this way. And then I find out, no, it's really not working that way. Right.
Yes.
Right.
So we're really able to get in on the ground floor with those folks and understand what's actually happening. And while we're doing that, we're able to, through our experience, ask the right questions to get the right information out of them. And then also poke holes in these processes to say, have you thought about templatizing this? Where's the checklist? Like, where does this live in your company? And many times they say, oh, that doesn't exist. We don't have a template for that. We might point out and say, hey, have you thought about automating this in some way? And we're not here to talk about automation right now, but, really point out some low hanging fruit that, again, what you get with us is a background and experience in tech and automation as well. So you kind of benefit from that. To say, we think you're wasting a lot of time on this. Let's flag this as an action item and then come back to it so that we can make sure that it gets addressed, because it's a huge opportunity.
Right. I just thought of this. Do you ever go into a company and then you walk out with a new employee because they just want to process all day long and they want to come work for you? I'm serious. Does that happen?
That's happened once before. Yeah, that has happened once before. You get somebody who's they just eat it up, love it, is their natural ability to do it. And so you have those folks, keep them as close as you possibly can, because I think people that can think in terms of process in a company are extremely valuable. And if you do have those types of people, just using our framework and templates and giving those to that person, you might be able to just do this yourself, which is fantastic.
Right. What's
but
your longest engagement with a company? If you said typically it's a 90-day, right? Do you go beyond the 90 days?
Yeah. So usually we'll come in, things usually last about 90 days. We deliver our first process in the playbook in 2 weeks. It's fully published, so you don't have to wait till the end. But we've had a company that ran with us for 9 months because we just got in there and they're like, wow, this is fantastic. Here's another one. Here's another one. Here's another one. Let's just keep, the train is moving. And the way we set this up is on a timeline that we build out in a pretty basic Google sheet to make sure that we're hitting these sessions. But we just kept dragging those cells over for more sessions and days and kept filling the boxes. So we'll run as long as somebody wants to run with us. But typically 90 days on average is about how long it takes to get through that first stand up.
I don't, I just could see the relationship lasting much longer. I guess it depends on the company. I like to create value. I like to be creative. I'm always looking, I think one thing that Dan Sullivan does, right? He's always creating these concepts and putting out these new books and these new thoughts, right? And it's just like always value creation. I love to see what you can do in 90 days. That's amazing. I mean, when you guys think about a 90-day world, it can be a long time in some respects, but I mean, when you're talking about dramatically changing your business, your quality of your business, how you communicate with your team members, and doing that in the months of, over the course of 3 months, right? So April, May, June, for example, and boom, your 2025 and 2026 looks a ton different.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's interesting because I think people, when you go through that rock setting process, if you're running on EOS, I've seen some really low hanging fruit rocks where it's like, it's really going to take you 90 days to get this whole thing done. Like some rocks that are like, create a presentation to give to a center of influence group. It's like, it's going to take you 3 months to do that. I think it's all about where you set the bar, because historically, I think there have been limiting beliefs about how long it's going to take you to do certain things. It'll take you that amount of time if you allocate to it and think that it's going to take that amount of time. But if you come in with a game plan that is ready to rock and roll, and, for instance, like a trainer that can hold you accountable to it, you're going to get those results in a much faster amount of time. So it's like when they thought that nobody could ever run a 4-minute mile, and then somebody ran it, and then everybody else ran a 4-minute mile shortly after. You just have to change your lens and where the bar is. And, that's what the structured approach we bring can help do.
What about this? Have you had a client that's gone 90 days? They take a break. They come back to you a year later and they say, hey, we got some more things we need help shaping up.
Totally. That happens as well. We love re-engaging with clients because what they want to do, and they go through our process, they're like, we're good for now. And then what typically happens is that we've now installed our thinking frameworks on their people. So it's almost like by osmosis, by working with our team, we're asking you the right questions. You're learning the punchlines to all of our jokes when it's like, you're probably going to ask for the template for this, or do we have this, and those sorts of things. And so what they'll say is down the line is, if they don't want to do it themselves, they'll call us back in and say, hey, we've got another round for you guys. Can we get you back in here to help do these things?
Right.
So
can you tell us the cost? Can we get into that?
Yeah. So we've got 3 different packages. So the do it yourself, totally free. That's going to be the course, including all the templates. If you go to our website /resources right now, you can grab a couple of those templates from within the course, and along with a couple different worksheets. One is called the readiness checklist. That's going to tell you if you're ready to document your processes.
All right, let's find
right up there, top middle resources.
All right, here we go. Okay.
Yep. So we are doing pre-launch right now for our new course that's launching on February 14th. So that's that sign up button that you see there. So go ahead, secure your spot for that. It'll take you to the sign up page. which is hosted in one of our course platforms. So you can go ahead, sign up there. I feel like I wear the same thing every day, or maybe it's just a good black shirt day right now. So you can sign up there. And if you go back to that resources page, what it'll do is give you a couple of freebies into that course right now. So back to our website, you can grab the knowledge base template right there. That'll take you in. You can go sign up for the knowledge base itself, which is a software called Coda. And then you'll be prompted to copy that document into your instance so you can have that immediately. Readiness checklist, all for free. Yeah, this will tell you at a macro level, are you in a state of ready to document your processes? And then from there, who needs to be involved from your team to make sure that this gets driven all the way through. And then
you guys
finally,
seeing all this value right here? I mean, come on. I mean, really, I'm not just saying this. I mean, these are the things that, like, you sit around, people are like, oh, we need to do this, we need to do that. Well, just even this, like, are you ready for it? Here's a checklist. I just love it. I'm sorry, go ahead.
helps you have the tough conversations with your leadership team and quantify the friction that you're up against. So if you do say, let's go do this, I would highly recommend you go through that checklist to make sure that you've greased all your wheels before you get moving. So that's all free, totally free, right on our website. So if we kind of think about that as tier 1, you can have that. Tier 2, which is a little bit of a hybrid between do it yourself and our professional help. So we run that. It's $7,500 to get you basically have the initial consult with you, identify your core processes. We'll take a look at some of your existing documentation. We'll pre-configure your knowledge base. We'll make sure that you've selected the right people. And then we'll also line up that 90-day timeline and then make sure that, you guys are going out and executing upon it. So it's basically like we get you to the tip of the diving board. We make sure, you got your goggles and floaties on, and then we push you off into the deep end and then kind of, take a peek over the board to make sure that you're not totally drowning. So that's our mid-tier package. And then the full service, full suite, done for you, everything is $7,500 a month. And so we guarantee success with that. It comes with a guarantee that if you come out of the other end of the first month and you're like, hey, this isn't what I expected, I don't see the value, we will refund your fee and part ways. We feel that strongly about it. So 7,500 times 3, my math is right today, that's 22,500. We'll get you that fully built out configured knowledge base. And then also you'll get this with every one of our packages, thoughtful rollout templates, give you the protocols to make sure that people are added to the knowledge base. Everything's configured properly, like full suite, putting you into a bubble and then kicking you off the diving board. So you're in one of those like floaty balls. Make sure you're, getting successful. So that's our package structure.
Yeah, I love it. Guys, what questions do you have? We're going till 1:15. Can't believe we're close to wrapping this up. Feel free to jump in with questions if you have them. Put them in the chat. What do you guys got?
I asked a question earlier. Did you want to get that?
What was your question?
I was hoping you could remember.
Do you have a phone number for your company? Yeah, I will. I'll DM that to you. But for everybody else, it's 815-488-3004.
And if you could do something, like if you could find a way, I mean, this is right up your alley, where a teacher could put in keywords, right, for their lesson, and it would pull out all the state standards that would apply to those keywords and put them in right there in their lesson plan. They'd put a statue up for you in Madison, Wisconsin. I swear to God, they would. I'd put a statue up in my front yard. I would.
Okay. Are you in the education industry?
Yeah, I've been in it for a long time. I went out and I went into business, and I told these guys about it, Kyle and them. And I'd never done business before. And then that's how I knew what a workflow was, because they spent a great deal of time showing me what workflows were. I'm like, this is a lesson plan, really? Right?
Yeah.
But they were so keyed up about it, but they didn't use it. And their idea when they hire someone new is, you're really, really smart. we know you've got this. So you just train yourself on everything here and we'll check back with you.
Love that.
Yeah. It's like, okay.
We'll
Thanks for the
check
vote of
back with you.
confidence.
Yeah.
Don't really work like that in the real world. So they have like a big turnover rate. That's,
Yep. See that a lot.
but you're awesome, dude. I dig all this. This show has been awesome. And I give Kyle shit a lot, but I've been with him since the beginning. He's gotten so much better at this. He's really good. I used to call him like a game show host, but he's pretty slicked up now, right? So
He's got the setup now.
he
Look
does,
at that new
and
setup.
he's a good host, and
You
he
know-
redirects like he's in court, right?
Well, it's always it's a work in progress. Like you said, some of our original iterations of this, we played music, we played videos, we're all doing all sorts of different stuff, and which was fun. It's phases in life, but Adam, I just always love to know about the person. So we've got about 5, maybe 4
Yeah.
minutes now. Like, who is Adam at your core?
Ah, man.
Why are you doing this? Like, what really drives you?
What drives me? Why am I doing this? I'm doing this because I just feel like I've been fortunate enough to have enough of these reps and experiences at some of these smaller size companies to know that there's a little bit more of a common denominator here than we think. And that, again, if I had the tools and thinking frameworks to do this a couple of years ago, I would have absolutely eaten them up. I think that where we're at right now, if you don't show your work in today's age, nobody's going to think you're credible. And so I think showing your work like we're doing here is really, it's not for an ego thing. It's just to help people that I wish I would have had the help with, because at the end of the day, I'm not going to say it's not that hard, but it's not that hard if you can, take somebody else's template and run with a proven, framework and method. And so I'm just trying to make life easier, because like what I'm doing here, I use every single day, and I believe heavily in. I believe in this knowledge base. I believe in the structure. I believe in the approach. Also consult businesses on the operations side too, which these are the same exact tools that we bring in when we're going real deep into some companies that obviously we didn't talk about here today, but it's just, it's kind of this, culmination of everything I've learned from all the mistakes we've made at this point. So that's why I'm doing it, is just because I really enjoy business. I love the game of business. I love being creative around business, and things change and evolve, but I'm passionate about sharing our findings about that. But beyond that, it's also to put a roof over the heads of my wife and multi-poo dog, Rachel and Quinn. So shout out to Quinny Beans.
And hey, Timmy, thank you for being here. You have been here since the beginning, and Adam, you're our first guest who I guess you're not in the studio, but utilizing our studio that Patrice has helped to build out. So hopefully we have better
Beautiful
sound quality and the whole thing.
I shouldn't have called it the Death Star studio, should I? Oh, Jesus.
That's okay. I was laughing with you, Timmy. You're fine.
Hey, I don't know. It's growing on me. I have some kids that are in college, and both of them reached out and they're like, "We love the new background." I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, if the kids like it,
Okay, can you say this quick? No, Luke, I am your father.
Yeah.
Love that.
Adam, just quick before we go, give me a high-fiveable moment that you had with a company. You guys came in, you did this 90-day thing. Tell me about the high-fiveable moment. What did it look like?
I think my high-fiveable moment came 2 months after, when we checked in. We did what we did. We did what we do, and delivered exactly what we would. And, some companies really take the ball and run with it, and other companies, use it and are effective with it. But this company really took the ball and run with it, to where all of those resources that I gave you to like fill in the blanks on your own outside of process were expanded on, built out, multiple authors, like people were in that thing every single day. And that is what really success equates to, is when your culture is one that is using this knowledge base, on a daily basis. It's the first place you got to find information, and answers are updated as people learn new things and try new things. And that to me was the biggest high five. Was when I saw that, I'm like, man, you guys are crushing it. And the best thing about it, zero guidance on the execution piece. Like, it's just take it and run, and they ran. So that's when it really gets exciting, is when companies like self-multiply this thing on their own.
Good for you, man. That's awesome.
Thank you.
All right, Adam. Well, I will follow up with you and look forward to hopefully connecting later this month in
Yes, sir.
person. And then we'd love to have you come back here on 2026 and see where things are at and what progress you've made. So I'm going to have Patrice reach out to you and connect up on that. I know I'll be downloading some of the information, the free resources, using the checklist and figuring out if we're ready for this, and certainly learning more about your company and perhaps how you can help here at HKK. And I certainly want to be a resource for you and introduce you to other business owners and companies as best that I can. So all I can say is I'm really grateful for you coming on. Just such a, if I call it that, a presentation, just a great talk. But it just really was, at least interesting to me and insightful. And I appreciate your time so much. So
Here, here.
yeah.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for joining us. Thank you, Kyle, Patrice, for setting this up. Everything looks fantastic. The studio's rocking, and can't wait to come back.
All righty.
One of the best shows ever.
All right. Thank
Awesome.
you. Jimmy. All right. We'll connect later, guys. That's a Meaningful Ideas Trading Club for today, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks again. Take care.
See you guys.